Danielle Ross never answered unknown numbers, but tonight the phone wouldn't stop ringing. When she finally picked up, all she heard was her own voice recorded, whispering a secret she had never told anyone. The kitchen reeked of fried onions and cigarette smoke, the same air Danielle Ross had grown up choking on, and it hung heavy around her as if even the walls had absorbed the stench of resentment and unspoken hatred over the years. Her father sat at the head of the table, his beer balanced on the rise of his belly, while her mother leaned against the counter smirking like she already knew what was coming. Her brother Sean sprawled across the couch with his phone, chuckling at some video while Danielle clutched the crumpled papers in her hand. Her last hope for freedom and the future she had dreamed about since she was a little girl who used to sneak into the library for peace. Acceptance letters, financial aid notices, tuition breakdowns. Every word on those pages represented years of late nights, of endless exams, of sacrifices no one in this house had noticed or cared about. "Dad," she began, her voice cracking before she could steady it. "The deadline for my college payment is next week. I need to put down at least part of the tuition. I was hoping you could help with it, even half." Her throat tightened as the weight of their stares pressed against her, but she forced the words out. "Please." The room went silent for a beat, and then Sean snorted without looking up from his phone. "Why don't you just quit whining and get a job at a diner? People like you don't belong in college anyway." His laughter bubbled under his words, sharp and cutting, but Danielle ignored him, her eyes fixed on her father, silently begging him to see her, to remember she was his daughter. Her father leaned forward, eyes narrowing like her request was an insult carved into his skin. "You think we're made of money? You think after feeding you, putting a roof over your head, I'm going to waste cash on some piece of paper that says you're smart?" Danielle swallowed hard, her heart hammering. "It's not a waste. It's my future. If I don't go now, That was when it happened." He stood up, walked toward her slowly, almost calm, and then with no warning his elbow drove into the side of her neck so hard she gasped and crumpled against the counter. White spots burst in her vision, and the papers scattered across the floor like worthless confetti. "Brains are wasted on trash," he growled, standing over her while she clutched at her throat, gasping for breath. Her mother laughed, a sharp high sound that cut deeper than the blow. "Look at her now," she said to Sean, her voice dripping with amusement. "She finally matches what she is. 0. Exactly what I told you she'd be." Sean grinned, tossing a chip into his mouth. "Guess college solved itself." Danielle could not even answer. Her throat burned, tears blurred her vision, and all she could do was crawl across the floor to gather the crumpled papers while their laughter filled the kitchen. Each step on her knees made their voices sharper, louder, more humiliating. "Pick it all up, girl," her father barked, kicking one of the letters across the room. "That's all you'll ever be good for, picking up scraps." Her hands trembled as she gathered the letters, her chest tightening with rage she could not release. They thought she would stay down. They thought this was the end of her begging. But as she clutched those torn papers to her chest, one thought solidified inside her. This wasn't the end. It was the beginning. That night she did not sleep. Every bruise on her neck pulsed like a reminder of their words and laughter. Her reflection in the cracked bathroom mirror showed a swollen mark where his elbow had slammed into her, and instead of shame a dark steady fire lit behind her eyes. They wanted her broken, but she was going to rise, not by pleading, not by begging, but by showing them the cost of underestimating her. She swore as the house creaked under their drunken snores that they would regret every word, every laugh, every bruise they had ever laid on her. The next morning, her neck still throbbed where his elbow had struck. She pulled her hoodie high, hiding the bruise, and went to school like nothing had happened. Nobody asked why her voice was hoarse or why she avoided turning her head too quickly. Nobody ever did. She had gotten too good at pretending, but inside something had shifted. She was not begging anymore. She was watching, listening, and collecting. That evening, when she came home, she found Sean in the living room bragging to their mother about how their father had already promised him 10 grand for a new car after the wedding. "Imagine me rolling up in a Mustang, Ma," he grinned. "Everyone's going to know who the favorite is." Their mother beamed. You deserve it, honey, unlike some people in this house. Her eyes flicked toward Danielle as she slipped through the door, pretending not to hear. Her father stumbled in later, reeking of beer and waving a slip of paper. Guess what, Sean boy? Put down the deposit today. You'll be driving that car before the summer's out. He slapped the receipt on the table. Danielle froze in the hallway, staring at the paper. $10,000 for Sean's toy car, but no money for her college. Her blood boiled so hot her fingers shook. Thanks, Dad, Sean laughed, giving him a slap on the back. At least you're not wasting it on trash. The word echoed through her again like a bruise inside her skull. Trash. That night she went into the kitchen when the house was finally quiet. She pulled the crumpled college letters from under her pillow and laid them on the counter. The paper was torn and wrinkled, but the words were still there. Acceptance, tuition, deadlines. She traced her finger over them, thinking of every hour she had spent studying while they dismissed her as nothing. She whispered out loud to the empty room, "If I can't have their support, I'll take something else. Something they can't laugh off." The plan started small. She began paying attention to her father's drunken ramblings, the things he bragged about when he thought no one was listening. Like how he always skimmed a little extra cash off his construction jobs by forgetting to report certain expenses. Or how her mother sold Sean's old clothes online for cash she never declared. They called it smart, but Danielle saw it for what it was. Dirty. She wrote everything down in a notebook hidden beneath a loose floorboard in her room. Times, dates, names of people he mentioned. Each page she filled made her feel less like the helpless daughter they mocked and more like someone dangerous, someone they should fear. Meanwhile, they grew bolder. Her mother mocked her bruised neck when she thought Danielle could not hear. Should have smashed her whole head in, she chuckled one night while washing dishes. Her father grunted his approval. Sean laughed so hard he spilled soda on the rug. Danielle did not cry this time. She just listened, memorized, and stored every word like ammunition. The turning point came 2 weeks later when her college sent the final notice. Pay by Friday or lose your spot. She sat at the kitchen table with a letter in her hands, heart racing when her father walked in. "What's that?" he barked. "My tuition," she answered, forcing her voice not to shake. "It's due in 3 days. If I don't pay it, I lose everything." He smirked, grabbed the letter, and ripped it clean in half. The sound was louder than any scream she could have let out. He let the pieces flutter to the floor and leaned close, his breath hot with whiskey. "You'll never be more than you are right now," he sneered. "Zero." Her mother clapped her hands together like it was a show. "Bravo. Finally, she gets the message." Sean whistled, pulling out his car keys. "Hey sis, if you're not busy crying, want to come see what a real investment looks like?" He dangled them in her face. The laughter roared around her again, but she did not break this time. She looked each of them in the eyes one by one, and for the first time she smiled. It startled them just for a second, but it was enough because in that moment she knew something they did not. She had all she needed to crush them. Not with fists, not with begging, but with their own secrets. And when she walked back to her room that night, her neck still aching, her hands clenched around that hidden notebook, she whispered to herself, "They made me zero. Now I'll make them nothing." Friday came fast. The day her tuition was due. The day they thought they had buried her future. Her father was gone early, bragging about a new side job. Her mother sat in the living room painting her nails, humming off key. Sean pulled up in his shiny Mustang, blasting music, revving the engine loud enough to rattle the windows. "Don't stare too long," he smirked at her from the doorway. "Trash doesn't deserve dreams or cars." Her mother laughed so hard she nearly spilled her polish. "She doesn't deserve anything but what she gets. And she'll keep getting it as long as she breathes in my house." Their voices dug deep, but her hands did not shake this time because she was ready. That night, after they all went to bed, she pulled the notebook from under the floorboard. The pages were filled now, every shady deal, every cruel laugh, every careless admission they had ever made when they thought she was invisible. She slipped it into her backpack along with a flash drive she had been building for weeks. The driver held recordings of her father's drunken slurs about stealing on the job, her mother's casual boasts about reselling without taxes, Sean bragging about faking injuries for insurance cash. It was their entire empire of lies stacked against them. Danielle did not go to college that week. She went to their world. On Monday morning, while her father was busy at a site, she walked in with the drive to his boss, a man with thick glasses and a stern face. "You don't know me," she said, her voice steady. "But I know what he's been doing with your money." She laid down the proof, ledgers, dates, and audio clips. The man's expression hardened with every page. By Tuesday, her father was screaming at home. He had been fired, blacklisted from half the city. "Someone's trying to ruin me," he bellowed, veins bulging, spit flying. Her mother tried to calm him, but the panic in her eyes betrayed her. On Wednesday, she handed the IRS her mother's little online empire, every dollar she had hidden, every fake account, every scheme she had thought too small to matter. When the letter came in the mail, back taxes, penalties, seizure threats, her mother collapsed into a chair, white as the paper she clutched. On Thursday, it was Sean's turn. Danielle sent his insurance fraud recording straight to the company he had bragged about milking. By evening, his precious Mustang was towed away, repossessed to pay the debt he had faked. He chased the tow truck down the street barefoot, screaming while neighbors peeked through curtains. And Danielle stood at the window, arms crossed, watching them crumble. But that wasn't enough. They had called her zero, trash, nothing. If she stopped here, she would only prove them wrong quietly. She wanted them to choke on it. So Friday night, 1 week since her father smashed his elbow into her neck, she made dinner. Real dinner. Roast chicken, mashed potatoes, gravy. The smell filled the house, pulling them into the kitchen, suspicious but hungry. They sat confused, plates in front of them. "What's this?" her father asked, narrowing his eyes. "Dinner," Danielle said calmly. "A celebration," her mother sneered. "Since when do you?" "Since tonight." Danielle cut her off. "Since I decided to feed you one last meal before you starve." They froze. Sean laughed nervously. "What's that supposed to mean?" Danielle pulled 3 envelopes from her pocket, laying them in front of them like cards in a game. Her father opened his first, a termination notice, blacklisting details, reports of fraud. His face drained. Her mother tore hers open, IRS penalties, audits, threat of asset seizure. Her hands shook. Sean ripped his apart, insurance fraud charges, repossession notice, cancelled policy. His jaw dropped. The room went dead silent. "You called me zero," she said, her voice steady. "You broke me, mocked me, crushed me. But zeros, they multiply. And I just multiplied your sins until you were nothing." Her father shoved the papers away, his face red. "You think you can destroy this family?" Danielle leaned in close, locking eyes with him. "You already did. I'm just making sure the world sees it." Her mother's polish-stained fingers trembled as she reached for Danielle's arm. "Please, you wouldn't." Danielle pulled back, smiling cold. "I already did." She stood, leaving them at the table with their plates untouched, their lives unraveling before their eyes. Behind her, her mother began to sob, her father cursed until his voice broke, and Sean muttered, "This can't be happening," like a child repeating a prayer. But Danielle did not turn back. She walked out the front door into the night air, the stars above brighter than they had ever been. For the first time her chest did not feel hollow. Her neck still ached where his elbow had struck, but it no longer felt like a wound. It felt like a scar she had branded back onto them. Because they had smashed her dreams, called her zero, treated her like trash. But in the end she left them choking on the only truth that mattered. They had nothing left, and she had everything they thought she would never earn. Her freedom.